favorite comic strips growing up as a kid. So the first one I'm gonna go for here is this book I got. This is the Peanuts book. It's a visual history of the iconic comic strip. So I just got this for Christmas, so I haven't seen much inside of it, but Peanuts was certainly one of those strips that was very popular and accessible, and yeah, it was certainly very big for a long, long time. And I'm sure a lot of you have watched like the holiday specials like Charlie Brown, Christmas, and everything like that. So, but we're just gonna go ahead and get started and kind of enjoy this book together. This is my first look through it as well. So this will be in no way an exhaustive look at this book. I'm not going to be reading huge excerpts or anything, but I will be just kind of flipping pages here and calling out things that interest me. So right here, this is Charles Schultz. This is the creator of Peanuts here. And there's quite a few pictures of him, I'm sure, through here. And the first bit of this book is actually kind of like the timeline of Peanuts. And it's got it in concise version here, but as the book goes on, it expounds upon all of these things it touches on here. Like, I know his nickname is Sparky, and that actually came from this cartoon right here. This character called Sparkplug, whose nickname was Sparky. And this character premiered, I think they said like a week after he was, 2 days after he was born. So, just kind of little things like that, and it goes through the whole time period here. Now they have stopped running like new Peanut strips. I think he died in the late 90s, if I remember correctly. Well, it says December 19th or 14th, 1999, he announced his retirement. I could have sworn that he was actually deceased. So, that's interesting. Oh yeah, no, right here. February 12th of 2000, he passed away. So I would suspect his announcement here had something to do with the health, but, you know, he'd been doing this strip for so long, who really knows? I'm sure those closest to him know, but... So, you also see throughout the book there's kind of like these opening title cards sort of thing. So this is like the early days of Peanuts here. It says, it seems beyond the comprehension of people that someone can be born to draw comic strips, but I think I was. So we see some of these same pictures we saw earlier in the timeline. Here's the Sparkplug horse here. And some pictures of him. I guess this is him as a kid up here. Born in 1922. And then this is just him doing some doodling here. Here's a senior year picture of Charles Schultz. And yeah, before Peanuts there was a strip called Lil Folks. And I read a collection of it before at the Bible college I went to in the early 2000s. So I have read some of it. I can't remember exactly how it was distributed, but I do know that it was dating back before he did Peanuts. First mention of the character Charlie Brown, almost. So I guess right here, this is technically his first appearance. Here comes good old Charlie Brown. How I hate him. So, yeah, Charles Schultz certainly had an interesting way of phrasing things sometimes in his strips. Some of the ways that people talked was very blunt and matter-of-fact, and it dealt with things that were kind of surprising for you to hear come out of kids' mouths. So I think that's the thing that kind of had a lot of staying power for Peanuts, was the fact that it wasn't all just dumbed down humor. You know, it did have some, gag of the day elements in it sometimes, but Charles Schultz wasn't afraid to talk about things that really concerned him and things like that. So here we go, 1950s. This is the early days here. We see early Snoopy and Charlie Brown, and the later here in the 60s. And that's the thing too, like whenever you are following the history of comics or comic strips or whatever, it's interesting to see how a concept starts and then how it gets perfected after time, you know? So that's one thing I always get down on myself, because sometimes the visual doesn't always pan out the way you want it to, so. But I remember it's like, well, the early days of most great characters, they do look a little awkward, and that stuff gets perfected down the line. So here, I believe that this is Charles Schultz's studio with his drawing table and stuff here. Yeah. I think this is in a museum, though. It says Santa Rosa, California. It's been recreated in the Charles Schultz Museum. And then there's a picture of him working in that very space. Yeah, and he liked to draw bigger than, the little strips that appeared in the paper. He made him at a larger size here. He liked to draw big. So that's something interesting. And then we see the early newsprint coloring here. Charles Schultz. I knew that little kids live a life that is different to the adults. It's tough to be a little kid. And then we see here, this is one of the Sunday strips. They're always bigger than your standard, like usually 3 or 4 panel strip. There we see early Charlie Brown here too. Yeah, and people often refer to the strip as Charlie Brown instead of Peanuts, and that's kind of like, you kind of flip-flop between it there, or good old Charlie Brown. So if you say Peanuts, sometimes people don't quite get it. But if you say Charlie Brown or you say Snoopy, usually either of those, then they're like, oh yeah, I know those cartoons or comic strips or whatever. And then yeah, we see here's an early Lucy here. And that's the thing too, they also like to insult and stuff a lot in the strips too, which was something kind of unique. You don't get a lot of insulting and hate for the main characters and strips and stuff, so that was something kind of interesting. And I often wonder if that's something that Schultz himself dealt with, like as a kid, if he was bullied or, had this bad luck streak that Charlie Brown had. I mean, his name is Charles Schultz, and the character is Charlie Brown, so I have to wonder how much of that is drawn from real life or not. And once again, we see early Snoopy here. Mickey spoof. Snoopy's doghouse, sometimes rendered as iconically as Snoopy himself. Let me see Schroeder here. Get obsessed with playing the piano, which I always thought was interesting. And I had a good friend growing up with the last name Schroeder. He was very musically inclined as well, and he still is. I think he performs and stuff. And I think of him a lot when I think of this Schroeder here. Same last name, or same name somewhere in there. But he's a really talented guy. And then we see the Charlie Brown Christmas record up here, which of course I watched the special, but I haven't sat down and listened to the actual record in a while. That's something I might do since this is, technically the start of the new year. I still might give it a listen anyway, just because I'm still technically on break for a little bit, and it's still kind of Christmassy. So this is the first Sunday strip we see here. There's a Lucy. That's something I always thought was interesting too, like the main theme for the Peanuts cartoons and stuff is called Linus and Lucy, their brother and sister, but you think they would have the main theme of the show be based on Charlie Brown or Snoopy, but no, the song is called Linus and Lucy, the standard Peanuts song that everyone knows. And then we have Linus here, which he was always interesting because he always had this security blanket with him here, just to help him with comfort. And he was often the kid who would ask questions and think about things in a philosophical way, which once again was interesting to hear a character that was a kid talk in that sort of a way. And he's pretty much Charlie Brown's best friend. Then we have Pigpen, which a lot of people know kids that just like to play in mud and dirt and stuff. And so, of course, Pigpen is an exaggeration of kids like that. And we have Sally, Charlie Brown's sister. Always had a thing for Linus. And she was just kind of always the innocent, unfiltered kid. And every now and then she would just say something that would be completely out of left field. That sometimes, as we know, if you've been around kids long enough, sometimes they will say things that surprise you that might not always be like correct or acceptable, Now this character here I'm not familiar with, Charlotte Brawn. And I guess she's really loud, but this is actually the first time I've seen her here. Then we have the kite that likes to eat trees. I think we've all had at least one experience with a kite taking, or rather a tree taking a kite from us. And then they talk here about Charlie Brown's baseball team, which always lost every single game. But another iconic thing about Peanuts for sure. And we see some vintage toys here. And some of them almost don't look recognizable. Pigpen here does not look very much like Pigpen. I have seen this Linus quite a few times, and maybe these two others here between and Sally looks like a baby here almost. So, this is from 1961, I guess. Yeah. So here they talk about like spin-offs and comics that were made here. So I guess this was another strip that Schultz did that I don't even know, but it's called It's Only a Game. It only ran for a year though. But yeah, it looked like it was based around adults instead of kids. Now this up here, this talks about the Fantagraphics Peanuts collection here. It collects through, I think it's decades. Two volumes per year. There's 12 books total, I guess. I would love to get those, but they can be quite pricey, unfortunately. And then this talks about Charles Schultz reaching beyond, going global here, so syndication beyond the US. So he says you have to put yourself, all of your thoughts, all of your observations, and everything you know into the strip. So Charles Schultz did not take his job lightly. He made quality work. And it shows there's a reason why people to this day still connect with these strips, even the older ones. And we have here, this shows different languages, printed Peanuts materials. Kind of interesting to look at here. I like the Snoopy O here. I don't know what language that is though. See Japanese up there. So, yeah, this just talks more about world famous. Another early strip here. Round-headed Charlie Brown. This was from 1950 here. Here's a little pencil sketch of Snoopy doing his dancing there. Which of course people have seen him dance enough in the cartoons and stuff. His supper time dance and stuff. So I don't remember much about Linus having a relationship with the teacher much. The only thing I remember much about the adults was really from the cartoons, which was they just made like the trombone sounds, I guess. The wah wah wahs. So I guess in the strips that Linus had a certain teacher that he got along really well with, possibly had a crush maybe. I think that's what they're implying there. And of course it's talking about a security blanket here, which is funny because I mean security blankets are something that have been around for a long time. But now a newer one is like the weighted blankets to help with anxiety, so I guess security blankets has always been around. But now they have the weighted ones that are kind of popular too. And then of course the Great Pumpkin here, which was really the main time you see Linus kind of looked at as being a little silly, I guess. He was normally very right about most things with advice and, philosophy and stuff. And we see here the psychiatrist booth, another thing very uncommon. That's one of those things like Christmas, they talk about depression and stuff. Like, that's something that seems more current than it does from an older time period, you know. And then even they talk about like commercialism and stuff, and like those ideas are not things you typically talk about in comic strips. And then this is about the red-haired girl. That was the person that Charlie Brown had a crush on, of course. Happiness is a warm puppy. Definitely a common house phrase, I guess. Those things you would see on bumper stickers and stuff. So here we see some awards that Charles Schultz was given. Congressional Medal. Key to the city, I guess. He had his own day, so May 24th, 1967 in California was the first Charles Schultz Day. So this is a Reuben Award. I guess he got 2 of them. I don't know who Elsie Sager is. Schultz's favorite strip's Popeye, so I guess I'm not up on that. I love Popeye, but I don't know much about the creation or the creator or anything like that of him. So that's cool. Key to the city. So that was, once again, San Francisco gave him the key to the city there in 1968, it looked like. This is the girl with the naturally curly hair. And then I guess this talks about more extras being seen here. The Red Baron, where Snoopy would pretend he was a World War I fighter pilot, shooting down lots of enemies and stuff. Once again, well, in that time period, I guess it's not that unique. It's kind of more unique now. There were a lot of wartime references and stuff in those days. And we see some holiday figurines and stuff here. Now, I always looked at Charlie Brown's costume on the Halloween special, and I always wondered if he was dressed as the Holy Ghost here, with all the holes, or if he just got his eye holes bad on accident. But, you know, as you know, like, Charles Schultz definitely had some religious background and stuff, though, so that could have been a joke that he made. I'm not sure, but here, Peppermint Patty. Charlie Brown's sporty friend. And then Marcy here, who was Peppermint Patty's best friend. Kind of right-hand woman. She was another intellectual, like an actual, I guess she was more about like actual scholastic stuff as opposed to like philosophy like Linus was. And I think she had a thing for Charlie Brown, but Charlie Brown didn't really reciprocate it, I guess. So here we see, I guess this is like a true size strip that Charles Schultz had drawn here. So this is like a direct scan. Shows the anatomy of the strip dated here. Paste the copyright information. They said when a batch of strips was finished, Schultz would fold them in half and send them by mail to the United Features Syndicate. That's the company that ran these. So he'd fold it in the middle, a big batch of them, and ship them off. And then, of course, the signature there. And then here he said, yeah, they would paste the peanuts up there. Schultz would occasionally give his original comic strips to friends, colleagues, fans, charities. So he personalized it up here, signed it. Drawn on straight more 3-ply paper, so the thicker paper to help with the ink. So this was, the template was pre-printed, it says. So that's interesting, I didn't know that. And I think they're saying that even the title here, pre-printed too, so this would come to him, you know, and he would draw in the pictures, but the squares were there, and the title was there, but they would paste on the copyright, and then everything else, of course, he would do. So here's another Charles Schultz quote up here. It says, I found drawing with pen and ink to be a very challenging as well as gratifying. I feel that it is possible to achieve something near to what fine artists call paint quality when working with a pen. And I recently got an ink pen myself, an ink pen set. So hopefully that'll be something you'll be seeing some videos of. As I've said before, I've got like artist imposter syndrome, so it's hard for me to come to grips with creating sometimes. So here we see Franklin, and he was kind of a big deal. This was a time period when, you know, African American people were not given equal rights and stuff like that, unfortunately. So a fan had wrote to Charles Schultz a letter asking if there could be an African American character in Peanuts. And for a while, Charles Schultz was uncertain. Mainly because he, you know, he was a white guy. He wasn't sure if he could write authentically for an African American child. So, but he went ahead and did it. And I guess even like people were writing and upset about it. But he didn't care. He just kept on making his strips and including Franklin just as part of the group. So that was really nice and totally, you know, what he should have done. But like I said, the main reason he was concerned is he just didn't know if he could write in such a way that would be believable. He didn't want to speak out of turn. So he said, I simply introduced Franklin as another character, not a political statement. And it's one of those things, of course, all races, everyone should be treated equally. That shouldn't have to be this big uproar, you know? And then this is the first strip here, I think. I know he first appeared on the beach, so I don't remember this being the first strip here. It says Franklin first appears at the beach when he rescues Charlie Brown's beach ball, and they strike up a conversation about families and baseball while building sand castles. So that's from the first strip. I didn't realize that it was a Sunday strip. But I guess that was so that they could include the color so you could see more of the difference there too. And that's the thing, he didn't draw like a crude caricature of a black child either, so that's something you really have to commend Charles Schultz for doing as well. Because unfortunately at the time a lot of illustrations were not done in a flattering manner for African American people. So this is just talking about kind of some silly moments in Peanuts, I guess. There was enough reality in it, but every now and then something funny would be thrown in that didn't make any sense. And this is talking about Schroeder's love of music and Lucy not being appreciative of that. And once again, this was one of those relationships where she was attracted to him, but he wasn't about that at all. He was just totally into his music. Each character has weaknesses, and Lucy's weakness is Schroeder. So now we see some just kind of toys and collectibles here for Peanuts. And then this is talking about like some of the movies and stuff that were made. Here's a pencil sketch on a napkin, I think. Or no. I don't know why that looks like a napkin to me. Oh, here's a Schultz is built an indoor ice rink in Northern Carolina. That's something I didn't know. Interesting. First Beagle on the moon. Of course, talking about the moon landing and all that. Snoopy and Charlie Brown. First day of the Apollo 10 missions in 1969. So, the launch team, they were fans of the strip. The world is changing. Another Schultz quote. I think that any humor which is really worthwhile is humor which comments upon some aspect of life. Absolutely. Once again, that's what makes this stuff timeless. So yeah, this just kind of talks about like commentary throughout the times here. Let's see what he says. Woodstock knows that he is very small and inconsequential indeed. It's a problem we all have. And then there's Joe Cool, which was his Snoopy's like human persona. This is some commentary on school here. Talking about educational frustration, which is not uncommon. Plenty of kids do not like school. And unfortunately, the way it is structured is not really meant for any and every kid, but it's what we've got, I guess. So this here talks about Marcy. How she's an intellectual. There's a toy of her there. This is someone I remember, but I always forget about too. Rerun. I don't know why they call him Rerun. Rerun is Linus and Lucy's little brother. He loves dogs and underground comics. I'm assuming Rerun is just his nickname, but I don't know what his actual... Yeah, I guess it just says Rerun Van Pelt, so... He's more skeptical, is what it says up there. Musical notes, so I'm assuming this is saying that these were actual transcribed notes here. And I would assume that Charles Schultz was a big fan of music himself, because I can't imagine he would have a character and do stuff this involved if he wasn't into music. Mr. Sack. I've seen this image, but I don't know much about that reference. Camp President and Hero. So yeah, I don't remember much about that. And then here is a team of smaller baseball players who looked up to Charlie Brown's team called the Goose Eggs. guess aptly named for Charlie Brown getting hit in the head with baseballs. Beagle scouts, yeah, that's another common gag you would see. All the marshmallows on the tree branches there. Here's Spike. This is, I guess, his brother. I was gonna say it was his uncle, but I know that there's a lot of Snoopy family members. Spike doesn't really smile much, that there's not much to smile about in the desert. I think he was introduced, I'm trying to remember the name of the cartoon special with him, where like Charlie Brown picked him up at the farm and everything. Wrapped Snoopy house, so it looks like someone recreated Snoopy's house. I don't know why it's all wrapped up though. So I guess this artist, Christos, did this here. So I have to look more on this, but it looks like, yeah, this artist just did a tribute here to Snoopy. So I guess Charles Schultz was a tennis fan as well. This talks about his love of tennis. I'm not very good at it, but I know quite a few people enjoy it. This is another character I'm not familiar with, Eudora. Yeah, I don't know anything about this character. Oh, I guess she liked Linus too. So Sally was mad at him for that, maybe. Mad at her for that. Here's the football gag that we all know and love. Schultz strongly realized that non-stereotypical female characters always speak their minds. Yeah, that was a thing too. You know, most of the female characters in Peanuts were very strong, memorable characters. They weren't just, a footnote or scenery. They're very well liked sometimes. Some people prefer them over even Charlie Brown and Snoopy and stuff. So yeah, Charles Schultz knew how to write, and he did a great job at it. So let's see here, Charles Schultz. To take a blank piece of paper and continue drawing with the same pen and materials as when I started the strip in 1950 is a privilege. To draw characters that people love and worry about is extremely satisfying. Yeah. So that's really just the creator's dream, knowing you're making something of value and of worth that other people are enjoying. Affirmation that what you create is not just going to waste. I know that's something I certainly appreciated when I did the first Bowl comic. I shipped books to Japan and Australia and stuff, not many of them, Canada as well. But it's just cool to say that, some of my work, physical copies of my comic, made it into those states, or those countries rather. So, very cool. Very humbling as well. So, and this is another character here. I don't know, Harold Angel. Don't know who that is. Snoopy's family. So yeah, we see some of the other characters here. Brothers Andy, Spike, and Olaf. So, I guess that's Andy, and this is Olaf on the end. I think Spike's the only one that I committed to memory, though, growing up. Then we see some rough sketches here. A little bit of the template starting out. course, circling back to Charlie Brown's romance here, or lack thereof. Some more memorabilia. Now, I remembered, yeah, this is a big one, the snow cone machine here. I know I wanted one of those. The item I loved as a kid, there was a series of Happy Meal toys in the late 80s that they did. That I remember there was like a Charlie Brown with the wheelbarrow and stuff. And that was the main one that I enjoyed as a kid, was that line of Charlie Brown Happy Meal toys. So of course here's a tribute to D-Day. That's one of those things that it's amazing to think about, even people who were creative actually going and serving during that time. I'm not sure. Yeah, it said he did. Schultz had served in World War II and had never forgotten the experience. I can't believe that so many people helped in that effort, you know. I could never imagine going into a war physically with anyone, and, you know, I think I would be terrified to try to shoot someone or anything like that. I don't think I could do it, honestly. So I'm very appreciative of those who are able to do that. You know, I'm not a huge fan of violence, but with freedom, unfortunately, there is a bit of violence involved sometimes, which is just the way of the world, unfortunately. But like I said, I do appreciate those that are brave enough to serve the country. So I see Spider-Man here. What are they saying? So I guess it's just a little tribute here. Let me pull it up. It says, is there any superhero greater than you, Spider-Man? There's one, your creator, Charles Sparky Schultz. He has the power to make me understand a dog's thought balloons. So that was in 1999 that Stan Lee did that. And so, yeah, we see some other tributes and stuff here. Okay, so it looks like it says in May 2000, hundreds of comic strips dedicated. And then, yeah, this was the, I guess the last Peanut strip here. The final strip borrowed its title panels from an earlier strip that appeared in November of '99. Schultz chose some of the small moments that had made him laugh over the years. And there's his letter there. Dear friends, I have been fortunate to draw Charlie Brown and his friends for almost 50 years. It has been the fulfillment of my childhood ambition. Unfortunately, I am no longer able to maintain the schedule demanded by a daily comic strip. My family does not wish Peanuts to be continued by anyone else. Therefore, I am announcing my retirement. I've been grateful over the years for the loyalty of our editors and the wonderful support and love expressed to me by fans of the comic strip. Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Linus, Lucy. How can I ever forget them? And then it's signed there. And I think when that strip came out, I had clipped it and saved it, but unfortunately a lot of things that I saved got lost. So here, another quote. This is from the new Peanuts movie that came out a few years ago. Here, this picture. The most wonderful part of the business is knowing that you're reaching people and communicating with them. And yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I appreciated the fact that they kept the characters on model, and they still animated with it with computer animation and all that sort of stuff, but they maintain the look and feel of Peanuts. So here we see a Charlie Brown balloon, Macy's Day Thanksgiving Day Parade float here, some other stuff as well. Schultz on display. So this is the museum. I am not aware of this museum. I'll have to check it out. I did not know he has his own museum. And then there's other areas that have some of his work in display, including in Japan, it looks like. Here's some more memorabilia here. I know that this is a bear brick here. I don't know if any of the other stuff here is designers, but I know that's a bear brick Charlie Brown. And then there's the movie. And then they did a Charlie Brown animated movie, like special, I guess, for Apple TV. That was a little over a year ago. And then here's some thank you here. Having a large audience does not, of course, prove that something is necessarily good. And I subscribe to the theory that only a creation that speaks to succeeding generations can truly be labeled art. So, for sure. And we see the index here. And there is Snoopy's family. So, yeah, that was a great book. I definitely recommend you to pick it up and, actually read the fine details of it. This was just merely a flip through, an overview. If you're a Peanuts fan, you won't be disappointed by it. But this is the first in many for my favorite comic strip series of all time. So, now this is just like episode number 1. This isn't really ranked. It's hard to really rank stuff that's your favorite, at least it is for me. Like I said, cartoons and stuff and comics, so many things have just inspired me and shaped me into the person I am today. And, Peanuts was definitely a big part of my life, if not just kind of a daily ritual. Just seeing the sequential art, sometimes where it was a sight gag, sometimes involving a little more thought. But I'm just so appreciative that Charles Schultz took the time and effort to make something so memorable that to this day is still looked at and shared and loved by people all over the world. So I hope you'll stick with the channel here. Subscribe if you haven't already. There'll be more comic strip videos like this with other books kind of encapsulating different strips that I've enjoyed. Not to say that there'll be like art books like this. Some will just be, me flipping through whatever collected comic strip books they have for that or whatever, but so I'll be doing that. But yeah, I hope you guys had a happy New Year celebration. I hope that this is gonna be a great new year for us all. Make sure to subscribe, like and comment, share, tell more people about this thing. We want to grow, we want to get it bigger. I want to support you guys too. I'll definitely shout out any of you guys and, draw out more eyes on your channels. I definitely want to grow the community here. I want to remind you that we have the Stan Lee giveaway still going on. There's a link to that video below. As always, you all have a super slumber. Thanks.